Ray Donovan premiered last night on Showtime. It's about Ray Donovan, a professional LA fixer who deals with problems for entertainment industry big shots, but can't solve the problems in his own family life. Starring especially Liv Schreiber, also has a lot of other good actors. Let's break it down, Bob. Let's figure out if this is a show we want to keep recapping every week, or if something might bump it out.
Yeah.
First of all, what about Ray, played by Liev Schreiber? Did you like what you saw there?
Yeah, I think he's a good actor. I've seen him in lots of movies. A lot of times he doesn't get the lead role, so there was a lot of him in this one, but he didn't have as much to work with as I was hoping. So, but for what he had to work with, seemed fine. You?
Yes. So this is a pretty ambitious show, right? I mean,
Really?
it's
Yeah.
it's taking aim at being, one of the big, super critically acclaimed and popular hits. I mean, it's drawing on some shows like Sopranos. There's a lot of parallels to Sopranos, and then some other shows like that. It wants to be big, talked about, critically acclaimed, all that sort of stuff. So yeah. So and when I evaluate a show like that, I guess I hold it to a higher standard. But let's figure out what we've learned about Lev Schreiber as Ray. So we've learned some things about him, right? He's very good at his job, whether or not
Yeah.
his methods are totally legal, but he's good at it, and he's well respected by clients. He also seems to make plenty of money at it. Driving that was a Mercedes he was cruising around, right?
Yeah, I think so.
There are some clues that
Although
he's. Oh, go ahead.
his wife was complaining like that she didn't like the neighborhood they were living in. So he makes some money, but I guess Southern California to live in the expensive neighborhood is still pretty pricey or something. I don't know
So
what's going on there.
I feel like I caught a little bit of a line. One of the people said, "Oh, you live in that neighborhood? That's where like Sinbad and someone else lives, right?" Which is sort of funny because it's like, yeah, celebrities, but like this sea-level
Right.
celebrity.
You only have a net
Um,
worth in the low millions. Yeah.
right. Um, and there's some clues that he's done some ethically problematic things, but we don't really know what those are yet. And his family is different from his professional life because that seems to be a mess. His wife seems suspicious by default, but probably with good reason.
Yeah.
He cares for his family, except for his dad, played by John Voight, and he's really mad at his dad. Though we don't really have the full story there either. Though we have maybe a few clues that he wasn't a very good dad.
Yeah.
I'm a little confused though, Bob. What exactly does Ray as a character want? What makes this guy tick? I'm not sure the show has really let me in on that yet.
Well, he's got the stereotypical family first sort of mentality where, there's also hints about a past, and this involves his dad in some way. Of he had a sister who died. He has brothers who are all messed up in one way or another. And then as far as his immediate family goes, um, he doesn't even admit that there's a problem there, but he wants to take care of his family. He wants what's best for them. He wants a normal life, and that's kind of part of the problem of the premise is it's a little too heavy-handed for me, or at least I think, in that he's not that complicated, but he's trying to be with all of his long pause stares sideways into the camera, and I don't know, I'm not feeling it all the way.
Yeah, I agree that I'm not really feeling it all the way either because you're right. Getting his family out of that life that they had in Boston or wherever seems to be his main motivation, and his dad coming back is exactly what he doesn't want. But the stakes, I just don't quite get why I care so much about this because Ray certainly cares, that's clear. But I don't know why I care yet, and I hope it doesn't leave us waiting too long because I could get bored of that pretty quickly.
Right, and the other problem is it's only the first episode, and he got away with a lot of stuff. Like he beats a dude with a baseball bat. He like breaks a dude's finger at his own party. Like there's so many scenes that just happen so quickly, and you're like, oh, I guess because he's good at what he does, but like there's no sense of he's in trouble or he should be careful. I mean,
Consequences.
yeah, no consequences. There is the sense that his wife could leave him at any moment, but if you're gonna if you're gonna just like give us all that up front, I don't know what could happen to him that would get us on the edge of our seat because he already showed that he's a tough guy and he can do whatever he wants, and LA is his playground.
Yeah. Talking about no consequences. Well, I guess Well, let me just give you the example that made me think of. So, I guess we're doing the recap, so spoilers are allowed at this point. But when he goes and he is spying on that former Disney Mouseketeer or whatever she was.
Right.
He finds out that she has a stalker, and so some reason that it was unclear to me, he starts telling his employee, and then later on his friend or agent or someone, whoever that
Something.
was,
Yeah. Yeah.
that he had an obligation to tell her that she had a stalker, and it seemed like that wasn't necessarily the case.
No, not at all.
That he had to tell her.
Well, so what I saw was he has his own sense of morality. So he feels like he has an obligation to tell this previous employer of his that she's being stalked. But ironically, he's being paid to stalk her or follow her or whatever.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
the stalker.
yeah, not this guy, and I need to tell you. And then he breaks the code of conduct. I mean, sure, he's good at what he does. If what he's supposed to do is beat up people, because he did that a lot in the episode. But like, if he's supposedly good at what he does, then he follows through when people hire him and pay him money. But in the first episode, again, he breaks that, you know, customer relationship. And in this type of business, you'd think that that would really hurt him, but it's like, nope, no big deal. He was working for a douchebag, and now he doesn't want that job anymore, and he can do whatever he wants based on his own morality. And it's just felt like,
But it did hurt his own family because
yeah.
that's why that person said, "I'm going to make sure your daughter never gets into any good school," because Ray didn't do what he was supposed to do as his client.
But then when Ray finds that out, sort of indirectly, implied in an implied way, he goes in and just breaks the hand of that dude or does something violent toward him. And it's just like, oh, so are we even? Is that how he's going to try to help his family in another way? And it just felt very forced. Or like, Ray can't be running from the law. He can't have a problem covering his tracks. There's like no sense of reality. It feels, even the opening scene where what he does is takes two criminals and swaps their crimes, so to speak, or this complicated switcheroo so that a guy with a $60 million sports contract doesn't get caught in bed with a dead hooker or whatever. It just felt like so on the fly. He's like, hey, I got an idea. The morning of, this is how we're going to handle this, as if like LA is just full of these scenarios where this type of stuff gets covered up all the time. It just doesn't. Maybe if that was like, it was leading up to that, and there was a lot of interesting implications and complications with those sorts of jobs that he has, but he does his toughest jobs with in the blink of an eye, all up front in the first episode. So I don't know where there is to go here.
Yeah, well, to be maybe wooed into that sort of a world's a little bit boring. I heard a comparison about this show that actually makes some sense. Now, I don't think you and I have ever talked about this comparison show I'm going to name, by the way, but in a way it reminds me of Entourage in terms of
Oh,
its male lifestyle porn aspect, hobnobbing with Hollywood celebrities, pretty young starlets want to have sex with the character, stuff like that, fancy parties, fancy cars.
sure, sure.
Um, just like to fantasize about being in that sort of world. Um, but you're right. I guess it's hard to know if it's realistic or not because we're just sort of shoved right in there. What about?
Well,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say Entourage, not to defend Entourage, but it felt more realistic just because, or at least you wanted
Oh,
it to feel
really?
realistic. Well, you wanted it to feel realistic in the sense that there are a select few of rich celebrities who do behave this way theoretically. Maybe it's a caricature of all of them combined, but
Well, that's what I'm
um,
saying. Male lifestyle porn. That's what I think of as Entourage because you
yeah, fair
want it
enough.
to be realistic.
Right. But then with Ray Donovan, I don't know that you want it to be realistic or that it's even. Have we even heard of any cases? Like, the whole premise, is it based on anything other than like, this is an interesting idea? Like, do we even know if there are fixers like this in LA and this is an extreme version of them, or is this just totally made up? That's where it's different for me.
But I imagine there are people. I mean, people who do things sort of similar to this. Who knows if they're as extreme?
Yeah.
Um, so what about the acting? We have Liev as Ray. Did you find him convincing as this character?
I'm not amazed. He's doing an okay job. He feels believable enough, but I got to see a lot more before the jury's out.
Okay, I've sort of liked what I've seen from Liev as Ray. I want to see more probably, I'm digging him so far.
Cool.
What about John Voight? Are you a John Voight fan?
You know, every time I think of John Boyd, I think of that time we saw him when we watched the movie Anaconda together, like in the 90s.
Yeah. All right.
And so there's that part of me that can't quite ever take him seriously, um, and because it feels like he stars in most anything. But he's he's okay. I don't want to say I'm a fan because I don't really follow him or I haven't seen him in much lately, other than like maybe National Treasure or like what has he been in recently? Um,
But I get what you're talking about. The idea of John Voight sort of makes me laugh too. But I thought he wasn't too bad in this. Being a dad who may be sort of creepy, but on the other hand, we don't know if he's really creepy. Kind of intense, kind of weird. I thought he's
yeah,
actually pretty decent.
winking at a woman who's breastfeeding. You're like, "Huh, okay, old man, creep factor sort of thing going there.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's a little complicated, right? We haven't gotten to see what his deal is, what motivates him. He's actually one of the more intriguing characters in the sense that I, the show hasn't overexposed him yet, as they have with Ray Donovan, who now I don't know why I'm interested in Ray Donovan, but his dad now I'm like, what's his story?
yeah.
Hopefully
I
it's
do
not.
want. I want to
Yeah.
see more about him definitely. Um. Uh. What did I just have? um. Oh, I don't know that I'm qualified to really comment on this. I don't know if you feel like you are either, but I've heard from some people that there are a lot of Boston accents, and most of them are really terrible, and they're all different. Now, did you notice that or find that distracting or anything?
Well, I
Having
did
your level of
find
expertise.
I did find it distracting, but confession time, not because of my level of expertise, mostly because the wife, especially Ray Donovan's wife, I don't know who that actress is, but she was
It's
like,
Paula Malcolmson.
oh, Paula Malcolmson. She felt a little over the top. I couldn't put my finger on it. I wasn't sure, but I was going to look it up because it felt it felt like Ray Donovan's character was a lot more subdued and had a Boston accent a little bit, but was still. And maybe this is part of the way the character was developed. Was kind of trying to assimilate into the LA lifestyle, and I liked
Mm.
that a little bit more as an approach. But she was just like, "I'm from Bastion," or I can't even do a Boston accent.
Well,
It was
neither could
just
she, apparently, people say either.
yeah, and I just found it distracting because I don't think it's as relevant as the show wants it to be. I think the show already has too many like take me seriously themes, and if like they originally were from New York instead of Boston, and that would have been easier for accents, I think it would have been totally fine. It wouldn't have mattered.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, so like I said, I can maybe catch hints of it, but I'm not really qualified to say. But I always think about how so many other people have complained whenever I hear it. So I guess I'm distracted by proxy.
Right.
Well, what is your overall take so far? Do you think we're gonna want to keep recapping the show? I mean, there are others that
Ooh.
might take its place if we do get tired of Ray Donovan.
Yeah, here we are live on the air and going to determine the fate of whether or not we're going to give this the time of day. I
Well, let's watch at least one more episode. I don't think we have to pronounce verdict. I just wonder where you're
no.
leaning.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say is I'm totally comfortable watching it for now because there's kind of a lull in my TV watching at this time of the summer. And it's not horrible. It's just not convincing or it didn't grab me yet. But some shows take some time and I think
Sure.
it's proven its worthiness to be given probably even more than one more show. I'll give it like 3 or 4 episodes before I decide if I want to stick with it. I don't know how long is it anyway? Is it 10 episodes this season?
Oh, I would guess maybe 12 or 13, but probably at least
Okay.
10. I don't know off the top
Yeah,
of my head.
I'm saying if it stays at this pace, I'll give it 3 or 4 and then probably drop it. But if it gets better, or if we'll see. It's worth hanging in there for a little bit longer.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, just we've sort of been a pretty negative recap review here, but apparently, now I haven't seen any of her stuff, but Anne Biederman, um, she has an Emmy. She's a creator here for writing, and she wrote on NYPD Blue, and she also created a show that is a real critic's favorite that I never got around to watching called Southland, and
Mm.
she has a reputation for taking a long time to get a show going, but once it really finds its footing, it can be really great. So that's another reason to think that maybe if we give it some time, it'll improve. But we will see.
Okay. Yeah, we will.